Hello, everyone. My name is Tiffany Lesnick with Live Free Legal. I'm a domestic violence attorney, but I'm also a survivor. And I help women just like you navigate divorce, custody, and financial abuse so you can protect yourself and your children. And today, I want to talk about something that is so important. Almost no one teaches women how to do well, how to negotiate alimony. But I cannot tell you how many conversations I've had with women who come back months later and say, Tiffany, I think I agreed to something too quickly. I didn't realize what I was giving up. I just wanted it to be over. And my heart breaks every time because alimony is one of the few places in your case where you actually have room to shape the outcome. Before we jump in, if this is helpful to you, take a second to like and subscribe. Every week, I share legal strategy, courtroom insight, and faith based encouragement for women navigating high conflict divorce. And if you stay with me until the end, I'm going to show you where you can access tools that will help you prepare for these negotiations strategically, not emotionally. This video is for educational purposes only and does not constitute legal advice or establish an attorney-client relationship. Family laws vary by state, and watching this video does not create an attorney-client relationship. If you need specific legal advice, I encourage you to seek the advice of an attorney in your local jurisdiction. So, in my last couple of videos, we've been talking about how alimony is calculated. We've been talking about alimony a lot, actually, this past month. I'd encourage you to go back. I have the links in the description and check out my other videos on alimony. We've been talking about what is income. We talked about budgets. We talked about financial affidavit. We talked about imputation of income when he's trying to suppress his income. But today I want to shift your mindset because knowing how something is calculated is one thing, but knowing how to advocate for yourself inside that system, that's where your power is. So let me paint a picture for you. We've been in this process for months, maybe years. You're exhausted. You're emotionally drained. You're financially stretched thin. And then mediation comes. And suddenly there's this pressure in the room. Let's just get this done. This is a reasonable offer. The judge might not give you any more. You just need to go ahead and sign. You have no other option. And in that moment, something happens. You start negotiating from a place of relief instead of a place of strategy. And I want you to hear me when I say this. This is the moment many women leave money on the table, not because they weren't entitled to more, but because they weren't prepared for the negotiation. I want you to shift your mindset. This is not just about money. Alimony is not just about numbers. It's about your future. It's about whether you can stay in your home. It's about whether you can provide stability for your children. It's about whether you can rebuild your life without constant financial fear. And I see so many women hesitate here, especially Christian women. They feel guilty about asking for support. They think, I should be able to do this on my own. I don't want to seem greedy. Or if you're in an abusive relationship, many women just think, I don't want to have to deal with him anymore. But the truth of the matter is, especially if you have children and you are in a relationship with a coercive controller, you're going to continue to have to deal with him, whether you like it or not. So don't buy into the fallacy that if you give up your financial support, that you're going to have peace from your abuser. He's going to continue to try to control you. So get the financial support that you need now so that when the battles come, you'll have the financial ability to compete with him. What you are asking for is not greed. It is restoration after imbalance. Okay, so now let's talk strategy. Because before you ever sit down at the negotiation table, you need to know your numbers, right? You need to know what your need is. Not loosely, not generally, not because I think so, but specifically, like, what is your income? What is your budget? What do you need from him every single month to make ends meet? And I'm not talking about living off a peanut butter and jelly budget, right? What do you need to have a comfortable lifestyle? Like to have grilled chicken and vegetables for dinner, to be able to buy your children gifts at Christmas time or on their birthdays, to be able to get that oil change or your tires fixed if you get a nail in your tire. We need to be able to have a comfortable lifestyle. So I want you to think about your financial affidavit not as a form, but as a story you are telling to the court. We've been talking about financial affidavits in my prior videos. A financial affidavit is pretty much a written out budget. It includes your income, all of your monthly reasonable expenses, as well as your debt. So we can get a good overview of what your actual need is. Your financial affidavit is a story you are telling to the court, a story that says, this is what it actually cost for me to live. This is what I gave up during the marriage, and this is what I need to move forward. And when that story is backed up by bank statements, credit card statements, historical spending, and documentation, you've got that power to give to the mediator that will help you get what you need financially. So here's the truth. Judges and opposing counsel are going to respond to that documentation and to that credibility. So now here's where things get really interesting, because alimony is not just what number do I get per month, right? It's actually much more flexible than that. This is where I want you to start thinking differently. I've had cases where instead of focusing only on monthly support, we negotiated a higher amount for a shorter period or a lower amount for a longer period, a lump sum payment instead of ongoing support, or a step down support that adjusts over time. So maybe you get more at the beginning, but as you get older and maybe closer to Social Security age, your support payments go down, right? So there's lots of various ways we can structure it. What I generally will recommend is calculate what the aggregate amount is. So if you're trying to figure out if you're winning or losing, and I hate to use those words, but if you're taking a loss or there's a gain, take the number of months of alimony that he's paying you and multiply it by the amount and figure out what's the total amount of alimony I'm going to receive for this entire duration. So let's say he's agreed to pay you 10 years of alimony for $500 a month. What does that look like versus I'll pay you 5 years of alimony, but I'll pay you $1,000 a month? What does that look like in the aggregate? And what is the loss to you if you take one number over the other? Okay. And sometimes we have even traded assets for alimony. You have got to decide for yourself what is important to you. What do you need? Do you need the home to live in? Maybe you can trade alimony for the house, especially if you have a house where the mortgage has already been paid off. You don't have a mortgage payment you're going to have to make every single month, because it's not going to benefit you if you have to go buy a house or have a rental payment that's $2,500 a month, and then you receive alimony in the amount of $2,000 a month, but you still have to pay an additional $500 towards your lease or your mortgage. It may be better for you to keep that house, not have to move, not have a mortgage payment, not worry about interest, not worry about getting behind on the mortgage, and have that security, and then trade alimony for the home. I also want to talk about using negotiations and alimony with property distribution. You want that cash. So it may be that you don't want to have a monthly amount in alimony. Maybe there's more in assets that you'd rather have from property distribution, right? Maybe you want one of the brokerage accounts, or you want one of the bank accounts. You want that lump sum up front that you have right now that you can then invest or hold on to for your own financial security, tangible assets that you can use at your own convenience and have available at your own disposal. That is something I really encourage many of my clients to consider when we're negotiating alimony. So rather than having a 50-50 equitable distribution or property distribution, you can ask for a larger share of property distribution, but then waive alimony. So you're still getting alimony, right? We're just not calling it alimony. We're taking those assets, we're taking that money from the property distribution, but we're ensuring that we're getting that money up front. We're getting it in a lump sum. And then that guarantees that you have that money. It's non-modifiable, so that in the event anything happens to him in the future, such that maybe he dies, he becomes disabled, he gets cancer, he has a heart attack, and he's unable to pay, you don't have to worry about trying to pursue those monthly payments that he's not making. You can invest it into a high yield interest earning account, right? That can earn interest for you. So that is another creative way to negotiate alimony. He may not want to pay you a monthly amount because that might remind him that he lacks that control. He's having to make those monthly payments to you, but he might be willing to give you a lump sum from an account that already exists. So whether that's a retirement account, a bank account, maybe the house, maybe you can take the house and sell the house. Use those proceeds, one, to buy another house that's maybe smaller, and then use the rest of those assets to live off for a while. So that's another thing to consider. And once property distribution is done or equitable distribution is resolved through a separation agreement or court order, it's generally going to be non-modifiable versus alimony. If it's settled through a court order or consent order, many times he can come back and file to modify. So that's another creative way that I want you to think about negotiating for support without necessarily calling it support. Again, think about what you need, right? What is going to help you sustain your standard of living? What's going to help you support yourself? Think about those things and ways you can meet those objectives and come into mediation or negotiations with an understanding of how best to meet those objectives. Don't worry about the means, just worry about the ends. Are you achieving your objectives? Are you achieving your goals? So negotiating alimony is not about one number, right? It's about building a structure that actually works for your life. And so when we walk into mediation or negotiations with alimony, I don't want you walking in hoping. I want you walking in prepared with a clear understanding of your minimum need. And again, that's your bottom line, right? This is the absolute lowest number that I will accept, or this is the absolute lowest offer, lowest amount that I will take. And again, not peanut butter and jelly, but comfortable. It doesn't mean luxury living, but reasonable, comfortable living. Again, I can get that cavity taken care of or that root canal done if I need it. I'm not going to be walking around excruciating pain because I can't afford $1,000 dentist bill, right? You've got to manage these things. Or maybe I have a pet that I love with all my heart and they get sick. Am I going to be able to manage those vet bills without having to put my beloved pet down, right? Think about these things. And you want to have a realistic range of outcomes and a strategy for how you will respond to offers. So you want to walk into mediation already prepared. You want to have an offer, several offers ready to go, and you want to have your bottom line in mind. What is the absolute lowest I will? Because what often happens is this: the other side throws out a number, and if you don't already know your numbers, you're reacting instead of responding. And those are two very different things. And it'll also make you very panicky because you're not sure. When the numbers are being passed around, you're not sure. You're reacting in fear because you're fearful over your financial future. So let me say something that might be hard to hear, but it's important. The court is not coming to save you from a bad agreement. If you agree to something, if you sign that consent order, if you sign that separation agreement, if you sign that support agreement, you are likely living with that decision. You are likely not going to be able to get out of that agreement. And that's why slowing down, thinking strategically, and understanding your position is so critical. And I want to speak to the woman right now who feels overwhelmed, who feels unsure, who feels afraid of making the wrong decision. Scripture tells us in Psalm 37, the Lord makes firm the steps of the one who delights in him. You don't have to have everything figured out today, but you do need to take the next step with wisdom and with preparation and with the understanding that God is walking with you in this process. You are not alone. So if you were sitting here thinking, I don't even know where to start with my numbers, that's exactly why I created the Empower Her membership. Inside, I walk through Christian women who are going through the separation and divorce process. And I walk through financial affidavits, budget creation, alimony strategy, legal education, so you can understand your case and be your best prepared. So you're not guessing, you're prepared. You can learn more about how to join the Empower Her community at www.livefreelegal.com. Before we leave today, one of the strongest ways to go into alimony negotiations that I want to leave you with, you always want to start with your highest numbers first. Now, you want your numbers to be reasonable, right? But we don't want to start low because he's going to negotiate low. So if you start low, he's going to come back with a lower number. We want to start in a position that gives us our strongest case and most flexibility for getting the best possible alimony outcome that we can. So we want to come in and we want to start higher. So that gives us the ability to negotiate. And even if we get to a lower number, it might be one that we can live with. So that would be my final tip of today. If this video helped you, make sure to like, subscribe, and share it with another woman who needs to hear this. Because the more you understand, the more power you have. And that power can change the outcome of your case. I'll see you next week.